Everybody
There we
ready?
go. Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining. We'll give it a few more moments here. Let some people come on in since we just opened it up. We'll be right back. Get this kicked off in a couple minutes. If you're just joining, we're waiting till about 1:05 to kick things off. So about 3 more minutes to let some folks roll on in. All righty, ladies and gentlemen, it's 5 after. We'll go ahead and get this rolling. Thanks for joining today. appreciate everybody signing up. Very helpful and insightful webinar we'll be conducting today. This kind of plays off of the one we did earlier this year. We'll touch on what we did previously, but also introduce any updates, changes, or anything kind of new to the stack. But basically, we're going to look at the delivering zero trust with Citrix and how that's done, the components that make it up, and discuss some of the features and the components that are involved in that. So today from Citrix, we have Zachary Rowland. He's one of the app delivery and security specialists with Citrix, as well as Chelsea Norrie. We've been working together for the past couple of years. Great group that we have on today. And then our partner account manager that works with XenTegra pretty closely, Greg Koslow. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks for having us, Chris.
Definitely. Always glad to do these events. A lot of fun. So if you're not familiar with XenTegra, we're a partner. We're a VAR. We came from the Citrix side, and here on the screen we have Andy Whiteside. He's our founder. Worked at Citrix as a SE for a while. Really helped get XenTegra to the top tier level with Citrix. And since then, we've expanded our portfolio and work in a lot of different areas to help make sure that your end user computing and digital transformation initiatives are successful and that they're secure, and that you can always come back to one location, one person, one partner to be that single point of contact for all your computing needs. So we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. I see some of you folks that are on the list here. You joined us. Appreciate you guys being a part of the journey. It's been a fun ride for the past decade, but as we embark upon our second decade of success, you guys are an integral part of that. So thanks for being customers of ours and working with us over the years, and looking forward to a great future together. The stack, we work in the end user computing, which is probably what we're most famous for. But like all of us, we've journeyed into the cloud, work with multiple clouds, multiple vendors to house that. We even have our own XenTegra cloud. Of course, involved in accessing those clouds and your end user computing, even since everybody can work from anywhere anymore. Networking and security were applied to our portfolio as well. And with that, Citrix has their security stack now, which out of all of them that we kind of deal with is quite possibly the most elegant by far. It takes that history of virtualization that Citrix has always been really well known for and applies that to the delivery to your end users in a secure manner that's pretty much bar none that the competition doesn't have. So hopefully you get to see some new stuff here that can really differentiate how you can deliver it with Citrix security stack. So this isn't new to Citrix. Security has always kind of been a part of that. So we can see here starting in like 2001, they took their first single pass load balancer for performance and made that GA. And over the years, and a lot of you folks that are on the call that I've worked with probably came back and worked with me for the ADC and SD-WAN components. So as we know, the security piece for the delivery of these apps and desktops and has always played an integral part in the Citrix portfolio. Now with the security offerings that we're looking at, what's on deck these days that folks may even have in their subscription or their licensing and not even be aware of it, or maybe you are and you want a little more insight into how to get it deployed. We'll be looking at those offerings. So out of the stack right now, we have the secure internet access, the web app and API protection service, the secure private access, which we'll spend a decent amount of time on here. And then we have the analytics for security that's also present for you. So with that, it's like, well, why do we need these things? Well, there's compliance reasons, there's insurance, there's, you know, if you're coming off of a reorg or it's time to refresh, it's time to introduce these components. So Citrix is definitely uniquely positioned with their security stack to move your organization to that zero trust without disruption. And I spend a lot of time in the field, see a lot of different customer environments, and this is by far the easiest way to meet a lot of those requirements that you might have on deck with minimal without disruption into your environment. See, a lot of your groundwork, if you already have Citrix deployed, is already there. If not, it's very easy to put this into place as well. So I'm going to hand this over to Zach and Chelsea to kind of take a little bit look at it, see what some of their thoughts are, and how we can help educate you a little bit more on these products here. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for being here again. Always good to have you on.
Always good. Yeah, the zero trust thing, I mean, kind of like you were alluding to, has been pretty much the hottest topic that we've had, especially with our customers that are, you know, trying to dip their feet a little bit more into the security side of things. Traditionally, when we talk about security, it's often at the risk of the user experience, right? So the more you tighten up security, the more parameters you put in, the more degraded the user experience. So with Citrix, kind of like you were mentioning, we're in a really unique position to where we actually improve the user experience. We do a lot of things like streamlining applications, you know, provide contextual access based on the policies that the administration wants to put towards the user. But so we take kind of the traditional architecture, you know, when you've got users who are coming in for web and SaaS apps or VPNs, and we actually consolidate all that down and put that under our secure umbrella. So, you know, one of the things that I really like about that is that, you know, we are kind of shaking up the mold here once again when we talk about our zero trust solutions.
Exactly. No, you are definitely. So we can look at this as a way to protect all of our apps, both internal, SaaS-based, internet. You know, everything's covered here. Am I right?
Yeah, that's 100%. You know, that's one of those things that we recognize, that every customer has different user groups that have different needs. So being able to really like unite that all under like the single delivery method and the single user experience allows IT to be a lot more flexible and strategic. So basically what we're doing is we're making sure that we're providing the correct security, we're providing the correct access, and the users have no idea what's going on. So at the end of the day, you know, it's one of those things that it just works, which is, you know, that's every IT administrator's dream.
Oh, yeah. Reducing complexity is an integral part of it, especially for the success factor. So really, how does ZTNA with Citrix work? So we're looking at oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so we accomplished our zero trust in several ways. So we start with authentication, and this is something that's been really familiar with Citrix through our ADC product. So we've changed that into this service of adaptive authentication. So essentially scanning those end user devices and making sure that they're secure, making sure that they're corporate owned or non-corporate owned, and really changing the authentication based on that device and what type of user that is. And then while we're doing that, we're continuously monitoring them during their sessions so that we can apply secure policies and ensure that no data is, you know, taken or infiltrated during these sessions. So we really are able to get granular within these sessions. Unlike something like a full VPN where you don't really have a lot of visibility, we're able to really monitor and apply policies as the user is working within their normal workday sessions. And then with the risk evaluation, that ties into our analytics product. So you mentioned the security analytics earlier, so we're able to really check out the user behavior and kind of see any anomalies within that behavior and evaluate the risk of that user. And we can tie a risk score to that user, essentially locking down certain accesses if that user does, you know, seem to have more risk than they usually do.
Great, Chelsea, thanks. And you brought up a good point, that adaptive authentication. You know, it's been presented to me from some customers over the past couple of weeks that were like, well, in a nutshell, kind of what is it? And I've done my best to try to articulate what it is. And I'm like, well, if you think of like the NetScaler and the EPA endpoint protection analysis that we've always done on that. It's like we extracted that in that M factor engine and put that service into the cloud so you can discern between a user coming in remotely or a user that's internal to the network trying to access the gateway services. That's how we're kind of protecting that and making those decisions in the cloud now. Is that fair?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep,
Cool.
that's exactly.
Always like it when I'm in the ballpark, at least.
Yes.
So the ecosystem, you know, folks are always asking, well, does it integrate with this or that? Well, we do.
Yeah, in typical Citrix fashion, we really integrate with a lot of vendors that are common in the IT industry. We try to be, you know, vendor agnostic with our solutions. So if you have, you know, a authentication product such as Okta, for example, we can integrate with that as your MFA provider. So as well as cloud, you know, we integrate with a lot of the cloud providers, Microsoft Azure, AWS, and Google Cloud being the main. And, you know, we've, since our networking and SD-WAN days, had a lot of integrations with Office 365. We have a really strong partnership with Microsoft. So anything Microsoft, we have a lot of strong integration with. And then when it comes to actually like uploading the applications that you're going to be securing, there's so many applications that you can just click a button and upload into the engine that there's really a lot of the manual work taken out because of these integrations that we have.
You're basically saying, like, if I was to look at the web app firewall on the ADC and I'm licensed for it, but I've always kind of been scared of it. I don't necessarily want to turn it on. I'm a little worried about how things will happen to the other services I might have on the ADC, or I'm just kind of worried about like deploying it and am I doing it correctly? You're telling us that it's kind of canned up in the cloud now, that we can, there's templates built for it. And with the,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, we've got our CWAAP service now, which is essentially WAAP as a service, builds in the API protection and bot with the DNS. And there's a lot of, you know, CAN configurations that you can utilize, and it really takes away a lot of that manual process and guessing if we're doing it right. You know, it's not an easy thing to deploy because it's a security product. So we've kind of tried to make that as easy as possible in these cloud services, which includes the CWAAP and the secure private access.
You most certainly have. You know, and a lot of enterprises, they face challenges with implementing this zero trust. So you guys coming at it a little bit differently with the virtualization behind it. Again, makes it a lot easier, a lot more elegant, but also your transition, your time to success and production is greatly reduced with that. So you guys are securing all the remote access for all the applications without creating the silos. The implementation, you know, is completed without ripping and replacing the existing infrastructure.
Yep.
A lot of that's just enabled through the like a cloud connector. If you're familiar with the with deploying Citrix Cloud and integrating it with your on-prem, it's very similar to that on how things are stood up. So it's pretty easy once everything's kind of communicating, and then you have that dashboard to just focus in and work on the policies and the features that you want to enable.
Yeah, exactly, Chris. And the cool thing about it is, you know, if you have a Citrix environment in place, this can integrate with not only those Citrix users and adding that adaptive authentication and adaptive policies, but it can also, you know, integrate with any users that are using VPN, because as you can see there on this slide, by 2023, 60% of enterprises plan to phase out their VPN in favor of zero trust. So this is really adding on to, you know, the Citrix virtualization that we've already been doing and just adding in those VPN users to that zero trust secure access that Citrix has always provided.
Yeah, and I think this slide kind of brings up the opportunity to discuss a little bit. If you're positioned in a situation where you guys might be migrating or consolidating services through a merger or expanding your footprint because you're onboarding, say, 500 new users next year, you know, this is an option that you can put on the table there for delivering the applications to those users. So why that comes up is because sometimes customers might have like a ADC 200 series that's kind of peaking on the amount of users that it could use. And they're looking at options like, well, do I relicense the NetScaler ADC and make it bigger? Or what are my alternatives here? And these are some of the alternatives that are present now.
Yeah, exactly. And the great thing is that it's a cloud service, so the deployment process is pretty quick, and it's a license based on the number of users. So with that acquisition type of scenario, you can add users to the Citrix environment, or you can just have users kind of access via the secure agent to where they can still access corporate resources without really needing anything else but that agent installed on their device.
So that agent on their device, but also there's the ability to use the HTML5, which is pretty much like, hey, it's going to show up in their browser. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, there's that option as well. So similar to how Citrix can use the Workspace app or HTML5, we do that with the secure private access as well. So either way, they can access, internal resources, and they're going to have an application screen similar to Workspace. If you want to build them into the virtualization environment, then they'll just have the full-blown Workspace experience, and you can change what applications they're accessing based on what type of user they are, what type of device they're on, things like that.
Yeah, so that's pretty important. Like the time to ramp them up, is basically zero at that point. As fast as they can type a fully qualified name or click on a link in an email, they're there.
Yep.
And we'll look at some of those more challenges. Transitioning to a multi-cloud environment, the rise of subscription economics, automation and visibility. Those are all challenges. Are you ready for them? Most of us, we don't need anything else on our plate, but at the same time, Citrix is helping to make that easier and streamline it for us. So let's hop over here to this next slide. So an overview of the secure private access. So this is the main bread and butter of the zero trust platform for Citrix. So per application, authentication and access policies are present. Cloud delivered across geos enables auto scaling. Access to the application layer, that prevents network level threats and attacks. And we're maintaining and delivering the best user experience possible, eliminating the backhaul and privacy concerns.
Yeah, and just to double click into some of that, Chris, especially with the access at the application layer. So when you look at, accessing network resources through a VPN, you're really giving access to the network. And it's hard to prevent threats and attacks from hitting your network in those situations. We've seen it in the news with some vulnerabilities being caused by VPN access. So we actually just provide access to the application itself so that the users don't ever have access to the full network. And that really prevents a lot of that vulnerability to the corporate network. And then the authentication and access policies obviously are kind of the way that we are able to do that. So the adaptive auth, making sure that we're securing what users are getting the access. And then the access policies, just making sure if they're getting access to an application, does that application need to open up in a secure browser? Maybe they just need to have a canned secure browser that can throw away at the end of their session in case they do anything kind of sketchy or unwanted during their session. We're able to kind of just throw that away and not worry about its impact on the corporate network. So really the whole idea here is protecting the corporate network while still allowing our users to access everything that they need that the corporate network hosts.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point there. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's that same story that Citrix has always had, where we win by providing the flexibility. So we just provide that even at this layer as well.
Yeah, you most certainly do. And that's a unique point that Chelsea brought up too. You have that browser that's embedded and available for use, which a lot of the competition doesn't have that. And we'll see a little bit of that in the demo video here in a few minutes. Very much a key function that separates you guys.
Yeah, it's a really cool feature, Chris. We like talking about it with our customers, and customers really like it because of the fact that you can kind of apply it to certain users that may be untrusted and allow them to still work within a browser without having to worry about the vulnerability to the network.
Yeah, I doubled up on a slide, so pardon me there, but let's look at some of that where you guys are fitting here in the industry. So you're popping right on up there. So this chart.
Yeah, Chris, this is one of those charts that I really like because it shows that, once again, this is not something that we're reinventing. This is tried and true Citrix technology that we've been mature. We're also moving towards the innovation side at a much more rapid level. So, earning that fast moving title is really fantastic. It really shows that we are ahead of the game. We've got the maturity. We showed the ADC slide earlier about some of the past history. We've been doing security since our inception. That's what this company's always been about. So it's really no surprise that here we are once again providing innovations in security that also improve user experience. That's always been the cornerstone of Citrix. So, it's good to get recognition for some of these things. And, it's one of those surprising things that when I talk to people and have these deeper conversations about security, they're like, wow, I didn't realize that you guys did that. So it's really interesting to kind of see us getting the recognition in the space for sure.
Very well deserved too. So let's look at the SPA a little bit deeper here and some of the feature sets. So the different data centers, the applications, locations, devices, apps, public and SaaS and on-prem. Now that's a lot of stuff to kind of bite off there, and we can secure it all and deliver it all at one product.
Yeah, it's crazy, honestly. We can look at, any type of application. The application could be sitting in your corporate network managed by you. It could be something like a database that your users use via SQL or whatever database. Public and cloud applications that are hosted in the cloud or SaaS. We can really secure all of that and provide all of the security controls because of the way that we're able to apply the policies to the session, whether it be agent or agentless. And then we also have our, adaptive authentication tied to it. So depending on, again, geolocation, device posture, so we can look at antivirus on the device to make sure that the devices that are accessing these resources are secured. So there's so many things that we can really do here. And then the visibility and monitoring goes back to the Citrix Analytics, where we can get the visibility across all of our application traffic as well as the user traffic, kind of rate those users and basically determine the security vulnerability risk of those users. And then that browser isolation is something that we've kind of touched on too, is with that secure browser that allows us to really still use the web and kind of do what we want within the web without introducing that risk to your corporate network. Because it's a throwaway browser, it never reaches back to your corporate network. So it's just kind of there for the user to kind of do. And if they click on something that's, security threat, then we don't have to worry about that hitting our network. And that's a huge, huge, huge benefit to having that browser built into this.
Yeah, it is. And the funny thing is when, as an end user, you really don't know. If you log in and you're in the workspace, you got all your applications. They may be delivered through SPA. They may not. And you really don't. There isn't really a big differentiator there as far as the user experience. It pops up, it works, it's secure.
Yep.
The users they don't need to know and they don't want to know, how it's getting there, just as long as it's getting there and it's working.
And that's kind of the goal of it, is to really not deteriorate the user experience, because we don't want users to, be upset about, the security policies that we apply, but we need to make sure that they're still secure. That's kind of what Zero Trust is all about. So we've kind of really worked hard to make sure that we can accomplish Zero Trust without compromising that user experience.
Exactly. Here's another slide that Zach's been, he's been pretty keen on.
Yeah, me and Zach really like this slide here because it kind of shows the different types of users accessing, and it shows that it's agent-based or agentless. So regardless of if this is like a third-party user or a contractor that doesn't even have a corporate device, You don't have to give them a VPN access. You can just give them access to the actual applications that they need via that secure private access. And you can give them access to data center apps or SaaS apps. So depending on what types of users and what types of applications, you can kind of see the traffic flow there. The secure browser service is, giving us that public SaaS app access with that secure browser that we've been talking about quite a bit. So really just making sure that no matter the type of user or application that they're accessing, we've got a way to do it.
Very cool. And then, go ahead. Go ahead, Zach.
I was going to say, yeah, and it's one of those things, Chris, that it just really unites that user experience. So when you talk about traditionally your users that are accessing some of these traditional SaaS and web apps, things like the Salesforce, the Zooms, the Workdays, we give them the same experience as if they're accessing their virtual app. So the user has no idea anything's different. It really streamlines that experience across the board, helps for onboarding, helps for expansion. It's just one of those solutions that I love this slide because, again, it shows that we're just taking everything and putting it under the Citrix secure umbrella.
Exactly. And we've had a few customers that are on here as guests today. They've brought up, well, what keeps like a user from just going to Workday outside of secure private access? That Workday has its own portal. How do we make sure that they have to come through SPA in order to work within that application because it's in the cloud? And the answer is that it can be done. We require that the Citrix Cloud is the authentication point. So if somebody is to try to log in to something like Workday, they're redirected to log in to their Citrix Cloud account. And that's how that authentication is taking place and securing that SaaS app from being directly accessed without using SPA.
Exactly, Chris.
That was kind of cool to point out because I was scratching my head when I first started to see this as well. Like, well, how do we do that? Well, you had a solution for it all along. So risk scoring with Citrix Analytics, monitoring, assessment, and mitigation. So this is something at an operations level. How might this help organizations?
So this is a really cool product because it actually looks at user behavior and uses anomalies and differences in that behavior to really basically score a user. So we're risk scoring users based on what they normally do, and if we see an anomaly, then we're going to basically trigger an event that says this is not normal for this user. So if you have users that are typically working in the Raleigh area and then all of a sudden they're downloading a bunch of things from China, then there's probably something going on and we need to make sure that we alert that and mitigate it as soon as possible. So based on the scoring and the risks that we see within the analytics, we can actually apply adaptive policies in here to essentially lock down certain accesses if we see something that is out of the norm for that user. So it's just a really intelligent tool to make sure that any unsecured users or users that have been exploited somehow get locked down so that they can't gain access to corporate resources.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's very, very important anymore. And then integration with these identity providers, it comes up quite a bit. And I guess you guys kind of covered all the bases when you enabled the ability to make your own SAML 2.0 identity provider. So basically the integration is, dare I say, limitless at this point.
Pretty much, Chris. Yeah, we integrate with a lot of providers, and it's very rare that we find one that we don't integrate with.
So here's how you kind of score up and stack against some of the other zero trust providers here. So looking at this matrix here, it seems like, well, you got everything checked off. So SPA right down the board, green on everything. Whereas Microsoft, they're lacking pretty heavily there, which doesn't shock me. But I think some of the big pieces here, that remote browser isolation, Not everybody has that. Some do with a third-party integration. That just sounds like problems when I see third-party kind of popping up there. Keylogger and screen capture, that's very unique. Nobody else has that. Adaptive smart card access. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, Chris, if you look at that robust authentication framework through that adaptive access that we've talked about, because of, you know, the integrations that we've had with NetScaler for so long, if you see kind of across the board, we're really a differentiator in that feature right there.
Yeah, definitely. It's a very good slide. So some of you folks might have seen this one previously, this under 3-minute demo, but in a nutshell, this kind of gives you the gist of it. So we'll kick that off again because it's still an awesome little demo video here. So we'll start it now. All right. See, I love that because it's showing, you don't even know it's there, you know, from the end user standpoint.
Yeah, and you can kind of see messages, you know, says your administrator has locked this down, but as far as the user's workflow, it's never really interrupted. So it, again, goes back to that user experience. And I really like that we showed several different things there. We showed the browser isolation as well. So that's a solid demo.
Yes, it is. So when we look at some of that, you can request a free trial, but for some of our users that, you know, that may already have it, how's this licensed? Maybe we could touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, so we've lost Zach. He unfortunately is having some technical issues, but the free trial definitely is an option, but some users that have Workspace Premium are already going to have this built into their Workspace access. So you can just go to your Citrix Cloud to access that and enable it. And then as far as licensing, it's just user licenses. So based on the number of users, so you could just work with your XenTegra and Citrix sales team, and we can kind of help quote that out based on the number of users that you want to kind of push this product out to you.
Excellent. But I'll hop back to like the security offerings themselves. These are all independent. You know, the analytics for security will play with SPA or SIA, but at the same time, you don't have to have them all at once or stand them all up at the exact same time.
Exactly. Yeah, that Citrix web app and API protection service, for example, if you're already using a WAF policies on your NetScaler, then this is something that is going to replace that. So if you don't want to move that to a service, that's something that you wouldn't really need to take advantage of. But that Citrix Secure Private Access is something that is a great solution for not only your workspace users, but also your VPN users to provide that contextual access across all of your user types. And then Citrix Analytics is just kind of a given, really. It gives you that visibility of your application performance, that user scoring visibility. So that's one that we definitely like to recommend to all of our Citrix users. And then the secure internet access, that's the one that's going to be more for your internet connectivity. So if you have a lot of users that work mainly from a browser and you need like a CASB solution with malware protection, that's where that SIA is going to come into play.
Yeah, thanks, Chelsea. Because back to this slide, we're showing the internal apps with secure workspace access or secure private access. Sorry, there's a little data on the slide. So that's for your internal apps and access, but the SIA, like you mentioned there, it's basically a CASB service for that outbound access.
Exactly.
So we kind of hopped through the slides already. If there's any questions in the chat, feel free to post them. We'll hang around for a few minutes. But I wanted to thank everybody for joining today. You know, as always, you know, you guys have been great to us over the years. We'd love to chat with you more about secure private access, secure internet access, maybe even the CWAAP if you're leveraging the WAF on your ADCs at this point. I want to look, or if you have a new venture where you need to take that and secure some of those web apps that you're hosting yourself, love to talk to you about it. But if there's no questions, you know, I appreciate everybody again for joining. Thanks to Chelsea, Zach, and Greg for being here with us. Always super helpful and fun to talk about this product because again, in the industry space, this is the most elegant solution where they combine security and virtualization together to deliver those applications for your users. And it's definitely much more mature and better than a lot of the other ones that are out there in today's marketplace. So thank you all for joining. I appreciate it. And again, we're here for you. So just reach out if you want to have any conversations about it.
Yes. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. All right.